You might try sending her a phone text message or a.
I sent her a text message and she hasn't responded to that, which is unusual for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that she's live streaming now on YouTube, but I don't think she can hear anyone and we can't hear her. But if we just can get her to assign me back to the host so we don't lose the meeting, that would be great.
Oh, I think she didn't get your message, Christina.
Well, it's in chat. Looks like she did.
Well, the meeting's still going.
Oh, she made me the host.
Oh, good.
Okay, good.
So she'll just have to log back in, and we are currently live on YouTube.
Well, isn't the world fortunate?
We would never be able to live without your dry sense of humor, Bruce.
Thank you.
We should mention for the YouTube audience that we're having some technical difficulties, so please be patient with us while we get the meeting started.
In other words, hold on to your knickers.
What if you're not wearing knickers?
Yeah, everybody can find something to hold on to.
Sit quietly and meditate while we get organized.
Okay, well, let's see. So we got a host. We have a live stream. We don't have Virginia, but I think we can forge ahead.
Virginia will be back in a minute.
Yeah, I have faith. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen out there in the YouTube land. This is the June 20th meeting of the Washington County, Oregon Committee for Community Involvement, the CCI. And we are now live and in color. So welcome for joining us. We have the usual suspects here in the meeting today. And I think the first order of business would be to approve the minutes. I like the minutes.
Could we do introductions?
Sure, let's do introductions.
I mean, if we have an audience out there, we should introduce ourselves.
What a good idea. I'm Bruce Bartlett, the chair of this group, and I will pass it off to whoever speaks up first. So I'm also involved in CPO 1.
I'm Gretchen Beener from CPO 4K and sit on the steering committee with Bruce.
Speak up.
I'm Fran Warren, also living in CPO 1 land, and I'm very active in the significant natural resource projects and climate projects.
And I am Jill Warren, and I'm with CPO 4M, and I'm very actively involved in the significant natural resource stuff.
Hello?
And I'm Dick Smith,
CPO
10, also a member of the State Groundwater Advisory Committee for the.
Oh.
Oh,
You're muted, Jim.
That old trick.
Tim Long, CPO chair, CPO 4M chair, East Tiger, Durham, Metzger. Chair of the Significant Natural Resources Committee.
I'm Mary Manso with a broken camera. And I'm a rep from CPO 7.
And the abdicated chair of the Code and Subcommittee, Code and Ordinance Subcommittee.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna have to wear that noose around my neck forever.
Abdicated.
I'm Mary Lou Oberson. I live in CPO 1, and I'm Fran's alternate.
I think we've got everybody.
I'm Virginia Bruce, and I can finally hear.
Yay! Hey, that's saying a lot.
And
we have our dedicated equity office staff person supporting us, Christina Barbarossa. So now let's get to the exciting part of the meeting and approve the minutes. Okay, what do you got, Gretchen?
Bruce, I move approval of the minutes.
I second.
Okay. Mary, you got your hand up.
That's because I seconded
Oh, okay.
the motion.
Okay. Any discussion? The right answer.
I see there's some errors and omissions. I didn't get a chance to do it. I don't have enough volunteer time. I just took a look at it about 20 minutes ago. I haven't had time to fix it because I'm prepping for this meeting.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry. So I will abstain. If he goes for a vote, I'll abstain.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 yes, 1 abstain.
So Bruce, are we approving both the April and May?
April and May.
That was the motion that I seconded. Was that the motion that Gretchen made?
Yes.
And we have, for anybody concerned about the robustness of the minutes, we have the entire meetings recorded and posted on our YouTube channel. So you can go back and listen to it over and over and over. Okay, with that out of the way, we have the Significant Natural Resources Subcommittee report. Take it away.
As far as the Significant Natural Resources Committee, we've met. We always meet. We discuss critters, animals that we've seen over the past month. And one thing I've done is I put together a list. Actually, I took a list for that we did. CPO4M members did in 2015, 2016, a list of all the species of animals that lived in a particular, or they'd seen or heard or smelled in a particular 2-acre plot at 82nd Cedar Crest. And since then, I've expanded it to include other species, other wildlife off the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife website. And a friend of mine who is retired from the Fish and Wildlife office has helped to determine which is in Washington County and which is not in Washington County. But so this started as something that was just a small 2 tax lot area. And I think it's something that we should do countywide to see what other species, what other animals and critters and birds there are, so that we can talk about the wildlife that we're trying to protect, the wildlife habitat that we're trying to protect. So if you want me to, I can bring that up for a screen share. Let me just make a couple of changes here. So I've got, it's a 4-page document, and the second page will be, okay, I've got it up on my screen now. Let me do the screen share. Oh my gosh, it's asking, Zoom has asked me all sorts of security things. Okay, I'm having trouble with the password on this. So why don't we wait on that? I'll try and get this set while we talk about other things. Anyway, there's an extensive list of fish and wildlife here. And I'm sorry that the Zoom it has some different security that I've never seen before. So it's not letting me bring it up. Again, I have difficulty with the county Zoom system. My own Zoom system works fine, but the county seems to be more difficult. So there's 4 pages. One is the original bird and critter list. The second one are the Oregon Fish and Wildlife website that focuses on Washington County. The 4th page are those fish and wildlife that are obviously outside of Washington County. So this isn't an inventory or census of wildlife, but simply a list of what exists in our community now. And it's pretty extensive. So let's talk about some other things. One of the issues we talked about, we actually put together a letter and we sent it to the City Council of King City, dealing with an extension of Fisher Road. And I'm going to turn it over to Fran to talk a bit about that while I look for my list here and try and get the password set.
I'm going to do a screen share to maybe make up a little bit for what Jim was talking about. This is all in what we as, can you see my screen, everyone? Anybody? Can you see my screen?
Yes, it's showing. It's showing. We see it.
Yes.
This is an example of what the various members of the community can provide to the land use and transportations and, wildlife inventory and riparian habitat kinds of things. This is an inventory that was done Cooper Mountain, and you can see that what they did is over a period of years, they took counts of various critters, as Jim talks about, and we can actually provide this information. And if your CPO has done any of this kind of wildlife observation, it would be really great if you could provide some of that information to me. So let me give you an example of what they're doing. Is they're they're looking at things like tadpoles and all kinds of various species of birds. And let me see if I can find one of them more. So they took citizen science kind of things where they're looking especially about the red-legged frog and various other stuff. And I'm sorry I wasn't ready for showing this, but this kind of gives you an idea. A lot of detailed information is available from the people's observations. And if you could funnel that into Jim and or myself, it would be very helpful for this wildlife, making these animals real. The other thing that I wanted to do was, let's see where it is. Data. Okay, it's on here. Oh, maybe it's here. Okay. The Washington County Land Use and Transportation is doing the Goal 5 Limited Update Project. I hope everybody's aware of that. For the first time in that I know of, the CCI is represented. Myself, I'm on the Technical Advisory Committee. And one of the things we're doing, here's the timeline where the different advisory meetings are meeting. They called it PAC, but it's now a TAC. And so you can see some of the key dates. And this comes from the Washington County Limited 5 Gold 5 Update Program. And if you have any questions, or if you want to provide input about what you think needs to be in our significant natural resource protection policy, please, I'll put my email in the chat.
We're still,
like
Fran, we're still looking at the spreadsheet. Is that what you want?
Oh, okay. New share. Sorry.
Actually, I have a question about the spreadsheet. It seems like it's mainly birds and things in the water. And everything seems to be lumped together. So if there's deer and coyotes and bobcats, is that something?
I pulled up the wrong spreadsheet because I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there is one that has larger mammals. Yes.
So what about squirrels? Because we've got the native squirrels, we've got non-native squirrels. So do you just lump everything together?
No. If anybody's interested, we have a Google shared drive that I've set up for Washington County CCI, and I'll put these documents there under the SNR program. Jim's accounting is much simpler. It's just, have you seen a certain animal and in a certain area, please let us know about it, because we want the commissioners and various other people to recognize that these are living things. They're not just something to, you know, talk about. It's real. Whereas the document I was looking at was actual counts and things, meaning that we as various communities can provide information to help update the inventory maps. Two different, you know, kind of things. But it's just what we're capable of as a community. So now can everybody see the limited goal 5 program update?
Yes.
Okay. So Mary, I will put we'll both be putting up these wildlife observations documents on the shared drive so that people can contribute to it, so that it would be a growing, living thing. Okay.
Yes, we'd like to see all the CPOs take a look at it and see what other species that they can find, that other people, other members or botanists or biologists who might be in their area or bird watchers might be able to add to the list so that we have a more complete list.
Right. And then while I was working on this while Jim was trying to get his technical problems, but again, the limited goal 5 program is to deal with significant natural resource areas, but that also includes, you know, upland habitat, riparian habitat, etc. So I'm going to put all the documents that I get from the Washington County meetings up on the shared drive, and we'll publish it with the minutes. And also, if any of the CPOs would like to invite me and or LUT, Land Use and Transportation, Michelle Miller is the senior planner on project manager for this. Teresa Cherniak did a little bit, touched on a little bit at CPO 1, but we're welcome to invite us and we can talk about this and get your inputs, because it's really important that each of the CPOs contributes, and I will listen and communicate that to the main program. Back to you, Jim.
Okay, take off your screen share. I'll see if mine works now.
How about if I fill some dead space here about talking about the SNR subcommittee?
Fine.
Are you there? So it's been an evolution. You know, many of you know about how the CPOs all got together in 2009 and published a tree code recommendation, which of course has not been adopted. But this SNR subcommittee has been meeting for something like 7 years, I think. And we kicked off with some of the early land use issues regarding significant natural resource. We know a whole lot more now than we did then. That's kind of one of the big things. And as a result of being on this SNR subcommittee, there were 2 people from land use, LCDC, the state's land conservation. I think I'll do the screen share again. And we now have those people that are lobbying, they're biologists. They have an objective feedback for all these things we're talking about with significant natural resources. And they're challenging some of the things that are going on right now and have a very, very strong interest in what's going on with Washington County. So this goal 5, if nothing else, is making some great contacts with state agencies. And I will shut up now. Jim, can you continue?
I'm trying. It's just not doing too well for me.
Maybe we can entertain questions. Does anybody have questions about what the subcommittee does? Mary?
Not so much questions about what the subcommittee does, but I think if people haven't noticed, the LUT has been going to farmers markets. And I don't know if there's just 1 left or there's still 2 left. I really wish there'd been better information about that coming out earlier. But And I guess the other thing is there is potential for additional significant natural resources to be added to the county maps by using the metro mapping that was done. And I can't remember what level of quality it has to be. It's not everything that's mapped, but it's the higher quality resources that came through the metro mapping. So it's, I think, beneficial to understand exactly what may be included by going to look at the metro maps.
Yeah, so can I speak to that for a minute? Because
Yes,
I've been
please.
working on those, looking at those maps for about 8 or 9 years as I reviewed the policy that's been coming out of LUT. Two things. One is at the very first technical advisory committee where we had all these different biologists and experts on this topic. The word that came out most often was confusing. The maps for Title 13, the maps from Metro, the maps from Washington County, the maps from the cities, they're all using different criteria and they're not clear. In other words, they're kind of like somebody said, it looks as if they were drawn in crayon. The delineations are not clear down to the tax lot or anything like that. And so one of the things that I'm hoping that we will be doing is it's a regional problem, not just Washington County. And we need to get back to the source of the issue. So you're right, Mary. And I've looked at all these maps. I think I can memorize a lot of them, but yeah, it's confusing to a lot of people.
Well, and I think one of the things that you do need to remember, Washington County with the crayon maps, it's if you're developing on a lot that is near to a crayon drawing, you're actually supposed to have a delineation done. And I don't know if it's next door to, but the crayon maps have never been a definite line on the map that developers were required to pay attention to.
And they do. They absolutely do have detailed wildlife biologists doing assessment, but those those opinions of those wildlife biologists do not necessarily concur with those of the more objective biologists on agency staff. Dick, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. I was wondering if this study of natural resource areas is limited
Okay, we're
to
back on.
in the urban area.
Well, Jim is going to speak to that because Jim brought that question up exactly. So we're going to get back to Jim now.
Okay, I hope you folks can see my screen share now. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, here's page 1, and I'm going to read it because it's important to put this in context. So it's a draft that's incomplete but evolving, lists of birds and critters, and it started in a small portion of the old town of Metzger in unincorporated Washington County. And so in response to LCDC's Goal 5 enforcement order in Washington County, as we talk about protecting habitat for wildlife, we need to be aware of the many diverse named species. So page 2 has the original bird and critter list compiled by two neighbors there, two brilliant people. Pat Forsyth was a science journalist, and Rich Hansen, a retired biology teacher at Tigard High School. And they put together a list from 2015 to 2016. And it covers about 2 acres, and that was the focus of a particular land use application. And I'll go to that page. Here's page 2, and you can see there's maybe 60 birds that they have there, and then there's some critters at the bottom, which include, of course, snakes and coyote and rabbits and raccoons and skunk and beaver and deer and moles. So this is page 2, and like I said, as Fran said, we'll get this posted on something so that all the CPOs can have it. Page 3 here are other wildlife in Washington County that I got off the Fish and Wild, the ODFW website, and I reviewed it with a friend of mine who's retired from there. And it includes many things here. You can see another 20 types of birds, mammals, reptiles, game hunting, game bird species, other game bird species, fish. And then the fourth page has species living outside of Washington County. And this is, like I said, it's evolving. It's not perfect. I'm sure you can have lots of questions. And then the last column, the fourth column here, are rare habitats, where we talk about the native plants, the oak savannas, wetland prairies, upland prairies, old growth forest, the old growth Willamette Valley ponderosa pine, and habitats that were not included in the original Washington County habitat assessment guidelines. So there are some of the wildlife we will put into categories that as being sensitive or critical. Others are petitioned to be listed by the federal government. And then back to the plants, there are some invasive species of plants and animals. And for many of these, there's declining species. Like there's more than 60% of birds have been in declining status. And this hasn't included all the insects and bees and butterflies, which are also declining. So I've been learning a lot. I'm really an amateur at this. I'm a social scientist. I'm not a regular scientist. But I think it's interesting. There's like different kinds of animals. There's the nocturnal animals like the skunks and the raccoons that come at night. And there's the daytime animals, the diurnal animals. And then there's the ones in between, the crepuscular animals, which come at dawn and dusk. So I'm trying to educate myself so I can advocate, and hopefully you all can help advocate for maybe some other wildlife that might be in your area. But here's the list that that we've put together so far. And like I say, it was two of our CPO4 members who 7 years ago put together this list on page 2. And it's helpful to understand it that way. So people love birds and watching wildlife. I know Virginia said she does. This is a list at this point, and the county obviously couldn't get into doing a whole inventory or census of the animals. It's difficult. But this is what we have at this point. And our hope is that different CPOs might be able to add to it, and we get some other biologists or botanists who might take a look at it and say, oh, you missed this one. Like Mary, you were just talking about the bobcat. I don't think I have a bobcat up here, but I have seen a bobcat up on Logie Trail up in the northern part of the county. So bobcats could be on this list also. So the more we talk about it, the more we'll bring out and bring to life some of these animals who are living with us in the county and who we want to continue. But as I said, there's quite a few that are in decline, and that's why we're here trying to protect the wildlife habitat. So I'll be glad to answer a question or two if you have them. And we will get this mailed out to people in addition to putting it on the Google Drive, so it'll always be there, but we can mail it out to people also. Are there questions? Okay. As far as other things for the significant natural resource, I'm going to stop this screen share. Guess it's over here. Other things we talked about, there was this, did you talk about the Fisher Road extension, Fran?
No, I didn't. Do you want me to talk about it?
Yeah. We both submitted letters, the SNR committee and Fran, we both submitted letters to them. And it's an interesting project that we need to be active on. And so that's why we're here. And maybe the CCI would want to be involved in it also. It's protecting some property right along the Tualatin River.
Yes. When you speak about it, the key point here, this is another case of different agencies in the region are not talking to each other. So Metro has been buying up property all around the Bankston Preserve, which is the property that is in question. And they have been restoring for the last 3 or 4 years, they've been restoring all of this preserve area. And just this last week, King City approved their first TSP, Transportation Systems Plan, which includes a road going right through the Bankston Preserve. And so Metro had put this land, agreed to put this land in the UGB of King City, but then the other part of Metro is spending money and volunteer hours, and we're talking about millions of dollars to restore this preserve. And then having a road go through, right through the preserve, is counter to what Metro's spending behaviors and conservation plans are. So I was able to get a number of state agency people involved. They're researching the situation, and they will give their objective opinion on it. On Thursday, one of the problems is the cutoff time for the testimony is for King City is a week beforehand, because in May they received 479 pages of testimony, mostly an objection of the road. So the counselors really didn't have a time to read all of the materials and know what they're up against. The next meeting, and Gretchen probably could help on this one, is tomorrow, where they're going to look at their comprehensive plan, or their plan for a district area where they will be developing, which is why the council feels that this road is so needed. And I think that, again, it's too late to get the testimony in time for the counselors to actually read it. But the guess is that this will meet with significant objection and litigation. It will very likely not pass. It's right by the Tualatin River, right near the Federal Wildlife Reserve. So talk about groundwater and things of that nature. It's detrimental to the Tualatin River. And that's my opinion, but I know that the city council has a very different opinion, or maybe they're just not informed. So that's the status of that. We will keep you posted. One of the big things, the message here is, it's very important to know when the cutoff times are for testimony, and to get the testimony in time, so that the people who are making decisions have time to read it and to do something. Yes, Gretchen?
Just an FYI to follow up. I have kept up with what's been going on. One of the issues that was difficult was Metro and Washington County required a second road to go through, A, but B, the plan has to go on the street, but until and when development wants to happen, no road will be built until there is development going to happen in that immediate vicinity. And I think that's the one piece of the puzzle that has not been included. Plus, the city wants to have that as a park. So I'm just passing that's information that when I was involved in the community plan, when I was on the city council, I wanted to make sure that no road would be built until there was actual development that wanted to happen. So that's my 2 cents worth. And I will shut up so Mary Lou can speak.
Mary Lou?
My comment is that the meeting, the next meeting is I thought it was Thursday, but Fran is telling me it's the 21st. So I think you're right. And I believe that you can still testify at that meeting as it's going on. So I believe you know, if somebody wants to testify, they can still testify. And the other thing is that the Carla Bankston's family that owns that property, it was put into a preserve in perpetuity, not ever thinking that a road would be going through it. And there are other options. So I believe Metro knows there are other options. I believe they are against this. And I believe people just need to speak up. I think the counselors are misinformed in some manner, that they've been voting based on density, based on future plans, based on pushing out the urban growth boundary and building a town center off of Roy Rogers Road, and wondering, my word, how are we going to get people there? And so, you know, it's like, it's putting the cart before the horse. You've got to look at what's needed to be preserved, and what has been going on all this time to preserve those lands there, right by the river.
Yeah.
And, you know, there are other options, and
Well, wait,
people,
yeah. I
people
don't think
have
we want to
shown,
debate. Yeah, we
people
don't
have
want to.
shown, people have shown the maps that show the options. And that's why I'm saying, yeah, people still need to testify.
Fran, the meeting is tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and in front of the city council. The discussion will not be on the transportation plan. It will be on the master plan, separate and apart from the transportation plan. As far as the other issues, part of the unfortunate history is that a lot of damage was created by poor planning on the count of the Washington County long time ago. That's how come 4K was created, was to try to deal with the damage coming from development up on Bull Mountain. But unfortunately, we have to deal with the situation as it exists, and we need to try and work on how to mediate what's happened. And I absolutely understand Mary Lou's position. And if I thought there was a better option that was realistic, I'd be right there with you. So, thank you.
I didn't mean to open up a can of worms here. It was mostly about the process, and so that CCIs or CPO leaders can help learn from this situation about testimony and notifying state agencies, et cetera. Anyway, back to you, Jim, and you can probably wrap up.
Okay, I was just about to email something to Christina. She sent me a chat. Other things that we've done. The city of Tigard is trying to do a trail in the Tigard Triangle along Red Rock Creek, and they're being kind of intrusive into some wildlife habitat there. So CPO 4M is involved with that. Otherwise, I think our big thrust at this time. Well, let me go back and talk about. So the county did have their technical advisory committee meeting a couple of weeks ago. And one of our members quickly sent me an email saying he thought that some of the people on that committee were just interested in keeping the status quo instead of actually making some changes to have the county's codes be clear and objective. So this is something we need to keep an eye on and keep following, and to see how it goes through. It's going to be difficult, and I will Jill. Can I say what Teresa, the 3 words that Teresa told you that you told me yesterday?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, she said that significant. The word significant is subjective. So here we are talking about significant natural resources, and that being subjective. So there's going to be some semantics we're going to have to deal with throughout this whole thing. But the other thing that when I did ask Teresa the question, now all of this work we're doing, is that going to be just in the UGB within the urban growth boundary? Because I've lived more of my life, I've lived in rural Washington County than in urban Washington County. And I was asking, and indeed, that big study that they did, that Michelle Miller did, the big 450-page thing, which showed that 85% of the significant natural resources were not at this point in the county's inventory because they were developed or paved over and right of way. she said, and this is significant, Dick, for you and other people in rural CPOs, that yes, if they do a code and ordinance, this 869B, it's going to affect the whole county. So we really need to pay attention to this. We need to work with the homeowners, the tree owners, and make sure that they understand what's happening and make it clear what we're trying to do. So we have to do that. So that was kind of significant, I thought, when Teresa was speaking before CPO 1 last week. So I will end our significant resources presentation with that note, but I welcome Dick or others to have questions about it or questions about anything we've talked about. Looks like Gretchen's no longer, oh, well, yeah, I don't see Gretchen anymore. Dick, we need to hear you.
So this ordinance will affect properties outside the UGB.
That's what I understand from what Teresa said last week.
She said that
Well,
it's specific to urban unincorporated inside the urban growth boundary. Take it away.
How
okay,
about if
well,
I
that,
take the action item to get the clarification? Because I usually get a very quick response from Teresa and Michelle. So in the minutes, can we give me the action item? And I will publish it to Christina and to the CCI. Okay?
so where do I find a definitive answer to whether this ordinance affects only the urban areas inside the UGB and not my farm, which some of these critters to me are pests, not
Yeah,
to
I
be
understand.
fun to watch because they harm my crops.
Mhm.
Fran, I thought that the presentation at CPO 1 was crystal clear that this only is urban unincorporated in Washington County.
I asked the question specifically, Bruce, and she said, the way I understood it, I have my notes someplace here, but no, it affects the whole county. So Dick, we're going to look after you. We want it to be appropriate for everybody, and so we will have to ask our questions, make sure we understand, but they're still a long ways away from having an ordinance. It's going to take another over a year before they have anything down on paper. So we'll have time to get straight on exactly what this means.
That's good. Thank you, Jim.
So
Okay.
I put the link to the CPO 1 meeting in the chat. Virginia put one, but it was a short 10-minute chat video before the actual meeting started. And so if you wanted to look at the SNR presentation, in which I recall pretty clearly that they're only doing inventory analysis in the urban unincorporated areas inside the urban growth boundary. It doesn't include cities or anything outside of it, but I will leave it to be corrected if necessary.
Okay, let me see.
So, but you could go look at the presentation and see what the county had to say.
Okay. Here are my notes. And I asked, will these code affect the many lands outside the UGB? And her response, yes, regs do apply outside UGB. Those are my notes from that meeting last week. I haven't yet found it on the YouTube recording of that, but I'm sure we're going to have to go back and make sure that we understand this so that we alert the CPOs outside the urban growth boundary to pay attention.
Okay, does that bring us up to Fran talking about the tree, the heat island business?
Cool schools?
Yes. I just wanted to share the screen for a second. So the state has, can you hear me?
Yes.
Everybody can hear me. Okay, so
Yes.
as people may or may not know, I've been campaigning a great deal to get a climate action plan from Washington County Board of Commissioners. And also that there's a lot of evidence that tree canopy contributes to climate defense. Well, the great news is that the state of Oregon has funded a program to do measurements across the Tri-County area, Clackamas County, Washington County, and Multnomah County. And so on a given day, probably July 13th or maybe July 20th, whatever it may be, various citizen scientists, people like myself or any other members of the community who are getting the training and get certified will drive around on that day in various parts of the counties and get temperature measurements. And typically what has been evidenced by this map as an example is these red areas are hotter areas than the green areas are the cooler areas. And you can see that like along the rivers, along Forest Park, a lot of these other areas that are not impervious surface, it is very hot. Whereas in a lot of areas where they have a lot of apartments and a lot of sidewalk and roadway, it's hotter. Typically, it's also the low income areas that are hotter. And so we have an environmental injustice equity issue going on, but we need the data to corroborate that. I'm sorry that I didn't get the information fast enough so that I could get to CCI before this meeting, since the last training is tomorrow. But you'll see that the person that's heading this up is Kathleen Johnson, who's in Washington County Environmental Health. And they're looking at, these other parameters, air pollution, climate change can modify your mental health and various other things. But this particular event is going to be very instrumental in helping the commissioners see how important that the streams and the trees and the native habitat are to cooling things down. And my other little adjunct to that is this last Board of Commissioners meeting, they approved the acquisition of pods as a means to support some of the homeless people. And I said, please do not put the pods in parking lots with no shade, because we all know that the smaller your living area, the hotter it can get. So we need to protect these lesser supported people in our county. So I just want to let you know about it. It's pretty exciting, and it's the state that's driving it and funding it. So stay tuned to hear what the results that come in. And I'm so happy they're doing it. Any questions? And I'll put the website in the chat if you want to learn more about it, or if anybody in your CPO wants to know more about this. And I'm done.
Okay. With that being the case, then we move on to the next action-packed item on our agenda. The CPO re-envisioning work. Excuse me. Excuse me. And this qualifies as the CPR subcommittee update report. So we have Virginia and Mary and I created a Google Doc that contains the guts of a survey that we will send out to the membership, asking about a variety of subjects having to do with the nature of the re-envisioned CPO program. I know that you're all just really excited to get this, as I am too. So
can screen share if you want.
well, I got it lined up. Are you, do you
Okay.
want to share it, Virginia?
Sure. There I am. So yeah, when Bruce mentioned that, when he sent out the agenda, it occurred to me that it might help us focus by having a survey so that we could see kind of what everybody's starting point was. And Bruce sent you a link. This will be turned into a survey. Oh, I got rid of all the, let me share mine. I got rid of all the colored things because they're kind of
Okay.
distracting. Okay. And it'll be turned into a survey that we can send out to all the CCI members. And we've all had our shown it fast. I did the draft and then everybody commented and changed and moved things around. So we just have a few acronyms to make sure we're all on the same page. And anything marked other will be a text box. Multiple choices will have check boxes. What attracted you to your first CPO meeting? How did you find out about the CPO program? What do you like about your CPO? What can a CPO or public participation program provide to the community? What should the focus be? How frequently should you meet? And this is very personal to each CPO. It's not saying how frequently every CPO should meet, but what you think your CPO needs to do and how they meet. Some information about how to get information out to your neighbors, and then the question of boundaries. I don't understand that one.
Well, the community plans right now define the CPOs. So
yeah, and then there's this stuff about separating CPO and CCI, and I don't get that either.
Well, that's what the OAICE presentation was.
What?
The OAICE presentation of May 9th was going to put the CCI somewhere, and it had nothing to do with the CPO program. So in a very real sense,
this is an alternative proposal, so I'm not sure why we're adopting their methodology.
Because it's a thing on the table.
Okay, we're looking at presuming that we can get Washington County to take the funding that's provided to OEICE to run the CPO CCI program, presuming that we could get them to separate that from OEICE and let us find a new parent or umbrella organization. We're kicking around some possibilities for that. And then these are the ones that were proposed by OEICE. And then stuff about what kind of training we should provide and some stuff about vision and mission. And then my original idea was that we could have a retreat where we'd have an independent consultant to lead us in some exercises to help us to reach consensus. The basic assumption behind all this, and I'm sorry for jumping in without mentioning it, is after OEICE presented their proposal to the Board of County Commissioners last May, the board basically said, nah, whoa, this is not what we're interested in. Go back to the drawing board. And not implying any coincidence, but shortly after that, Latricia announced her resignation.
So what we have here is a survey, and as we go through it, if you have suggestions about the questions, or if you have additions to ask to the questions, it would be helpful to submit them. The Google Doc allows anybody to edit it. So I mean, Virginia's idea to do a retreat, I think, is a really, really good idea.
Bruce, Gretchen
Yeah,
has her
Mary.
hand up.
Yeah, Mary.
Gretchen has her hand up. I'm just letting you know.
Okay.
Oh, may I speak? Okay, I just had two things. Thank you, Mary and Bruce for working, and Mary for working on this. It's yeoman's job. But secondly, the only comment I would make, and this is setting it up so that it's made clearer, maybe at the beginning, that it's for your CPO, not the CPO in general, because as I read it, I wasn't feeling that it was sufficiently clear to someone who's not an insider like all of us are.
So you're suggesting that we have things pertaining to an individual's CPO as well as sections pertaining to the overall system.
Right. I think it would be clearer, because I want this to be as meaningful as possible.
Bruce, can you put the survey back up?
Sure.
Because I think it's helpful to discuss it with it in place. Because I thought we did have something in there that did specifically talk about.
Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the third bullet, or the third question, is what do you like about your CPO?
Mary, what I was talking about is that at the beginning of the survey, I think it would be useful to say, okay, some of these questions are going to be about the program in general, and some will be about your individual CPO, so that people are already thinking in that frame of reference before they start the survey.
Well, and I know at one point I'd suggested we put something in there about each CPO is able to determine what issues they want to take on, that it's important for each CPO based upon what their leadership is and their participation to determine what issues they want to address.
If I could interject for a second. I think two things. One is along Gretchen's lines, is you have that intro part, but then also maybe group the questions in sections, because for one thing, my reaction was this is too long of a survey. Unless, as Virginia suggested, maybe doing it in a facilitated situation, and this is just giving people a chance to think about it. But if you could group them, it becomes the CPO program versus your individual CPO versus like general statements or something. Then it doesn't look quite so intimidating and so long. And people may choose to only fill out about their own CPO because they don't know about the bigger program or whatever. So just a thought.
This is for the CCI members.
Okay.
So, yeah, Jim, what do you got?
When do you hoping to get this out to people? When do you want to get the responses in? First of all, when do you want to finalize the survey?
It'd be nice to have it finalized by the end of the month.
Okay, I agree with Fran that it's a bit long. And I agree with the other ones as to whether it's for your CPO or for the whole program. So there's some clarification that can be done. I haven't looked at it enough. I've been too busy with some of these other things, but I did get the burden critter survey, or the burden critter list, sent out to you all. So it's in your email right now. If you need to, back to the survey, I'll take a look at it and maybe make some suggestions. I think you're going to have some where you have others, and you need to allow comments. It's an open-ended question.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just multiple choice, they're open-ended. So it needs to be well designed, and who's going to tabulate the whole thing?
The CPR subcommittee.
Okay, anyway, it needs some work, but by the end of the month is really upon us very quickly.
So one of the things I see here is what attracted you? How did you find out about the program? Might not really, for this group, be a particularly useful set of questions. Since we're looking at, since the length of the survey seems to be long.
I like the survey. I like those questions. I'm just saying it. That was my first reaction, and maybe grouping them might help.
Maybe we're mixing apples and oranges and have one that's specifically for CCI folks, and then we really do need one for CPO people who aren't involved with CCI.
Mary?
I think the mission and vision questions are really further down the road than what we're trying to work on right now. I think those both could probably be removed if you're trying to shorten the survey. I think they're good questions. I think it's just maybe not the right time to bring those up.
So that's those. I guess I'm still sharing my screen. So, you know, finding, so the reason that this question, the CCI be separated from the CPO program, is that was the way that OEICE was proposing. And so I just kind of went with that.
I like that question because it is something on the table. And if we come back and say, we don't think this is a good idea, we at that point have a consensus that yes, it's not a good idea. And, you know, people may think it's a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, we certainly don't have a full concept of where we're going with this whole thing. Jim, you got your hand up. You still got something to say?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
My hand's tired. My arm's tired.
This question here, what existing organization could provide the umbrella for the program to receive funding and staffing services? And since we want an attractive reason for people to get involved, and land use is simply not an attractive reason to get very many people involved, it seemed to me that associating it with the library system and having it be more of a almost club, if you will, at the library system would attract a broader group of people. That was my thinking there. So Mary, what do you got?
I think, you know, what this question is really getting at is, isn't it more, do we feel that the CCI program is appropriately housed in OEICE?
That's a good question. I would probably add Lewis and Clark, since they have a land use program, a legal land use program, and they're pretty close to Washington County.
But
That's
shouldn't the question first, the leading question be, are we appropriately housed in OEICE? And if not, who else? Where's a better location for us?
Shouldn't we be in land use?
Well, I mean, the CPO program combined with the CCI provides a variety of different functions. It has evolved to do that. And so the particular function that you're talking about, to me, seems like it has different logical homes. Fran?
I think that I beg the question on that. It has evolved, but I believe that there's so much development that has been going on, which impacts our neighbors, that there's hardly enough time to go through the details of what's going on. We have diluted, in my opinion, we have diluted what the CPO program is, because I thought it was specifically focused on land use. And if there aren't any land use issues, then you don't meet. And that you house all of those other issues in a totally different, like the OEICE arena, where you're dealing with quality of life in other aspects of quality of life. But land use is very complicated. And so a lot of things just get glossed over or lost because our scope is enlarged. So that's my opinion. I would be in favor of narrowing the scope and separating it from all the other issues, but that's just my opinion.
So narrowing the scope of the CCI or the CPO
No.
program?
No, the CPO program. Because I mean, in CPO 6, we would spend, we would go over all the different applications of any ilk that were going on around Aloha Reedville and Cooper Mountain. Lyle's would go through those stacks of things and hand out the hard copy. We've gotten away from a lot of that stuff, and we're doing a lot of other things. And so if evolution is the right answer, that's fine. But I felt like it may have missed the mark here, and that's why so many things are slipping through the cracks.
Mary, you still got your hand up?
It's up for a reason. I totally agree with Fran. I'm in the Fran camp. And I think with just the lack of leaders in what we are expected to do as leaders, it is impossible to do a good job to cover all the topics that have landed on our lap. And I think one of the questions that this survey dealt with was, what do you want your CPO to do? I think that is really what this survey should focus on. And I think at one point we had a question in there about or maybe it was one that I tried to push that fell out, but it's like, should the CPO focus on land use and topics or quality of life issues that are impacted by land use, and that try to bring it back to the land use component? Bruce, did that one fall out off the survey?
No, that's still in there.
Where is that?
Okay. Ba-dum-bum. Where the heck is it? There we go. Why should it be
Yeah, primary focus of the CPO program.
right there? Because if we only looked at things driven by land use, then we wouldn't have the service provider issues presented.
I think the service providers do touch on land use issues, maybe not so much the sheriff, but certainly when the park district comes in, water district right now has pretty important land use issues. I think it's one that, you could argue that it has the land use basis.
Okay, Mary Lou?
I totally agree. that's what got me involved in the first place. Is land use decisions and how they're made and what can I do about it? And, and all those service providers, they have to chime in every time somebody decides to develop a big chunk of land. The service providers have to sign off on their plans. And, so I'm always interested in what they have to say about things. But it's the land use that is in our area in particular. Certainly CPO1 has had so much development, and it's just mind-boggling how much land has been paved over and built upon in the 20 years that I've lived in my house. It's just unbelievable. And then when I moved out here in 1981, it's just unrecognizable. I think this is the one thing people really care about in their neighborhoods. It's just a terrific forum for people to come and get information and speak their mind. And I think that should be the focus.
Okay, Rob, what do you got?
Well, I agree that land use is front and center, but we've had conversations with waste management and how the county manages recycling, which has been pretty important to our CPO. And then I'd be concerned that land use might lose sight of some of the significant natural resource work if we're just looking at development. I think we lose people if we didn't kind of keep a broad net.
Thank you. Mary, what do you got?
Actually, I disagree about the significant natural resource issue because it is so grounded in land use. But to go back to the question about who should we look at to provide the umbrella services to the program, that's not really a question that we as CCI leaders can answer. I mean, we could request the libraries to do it, but if the libraries say no, is there really any value in asking that question to the membership?
Well, I had I got together with Marcus Ford last week, and he thought that as a group to run the CPO program, the library system made a really compelling case, and he really liked the idea.
I don't have a problem with the idea. It's just, I guess I don't understand are we saying, should we look at these groups because we feel that it would be a good way, a good resource to outreach to?
Yes.
Or, okay, that makes more sense. Thank you.
And the library system vets their volunteers. So you got to pass a background check, which I would bet everybody here does. But volunteer systems are uniquely vulnerable to being taken over by malevolent forces. And so having a background check that the library does has some appeal to me. I mean, the thing about land use that I've run into over and over is that nobody gets involved because they're happy. I mean, Mary, Virginia, and I maybe have gotten involved in land use because we geek out about it. But if you look at the number of people who are involved in the CPO program, there aren't many people, and land use is not a draw to bring people in unless they have an issue that they're mad about. And so if we had a CPO system that would spontaneously manifest for a particular reason and give people an opportunity to communicate with each other, it seems like that would be a good way of addressing the land use component there, because it's always issue driven. So, Mary?
So I disagree with you. I think it's all in how it's marketed. So I'll say, if I say, well, land use is sidewalks. People hear land use and their eyes glaze over. But if you say sidewalks, and the way to get sidewalks in your neighborhood is to actually go through the land use channel and get code changes. Maybe people will their eyes will glaze over, but at the same time, if they know that the goal is more sidewalks in their neighborhood, then they're going to be a whole lot more interested. And it's a way of taking the issue that will attract people and then tying it back to land use for them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Jim?
When I looked at the survey briefly before the meeting, I just saw something that wasn't there. CPO 4M has had a great deal of success, and we're not happy about it, but we have to do oversight for these jurisdictions, whether the city or the county, that are not following their own community development codes. They're playing in violation of their community development codes. And that's not something that's in the survey, but that's definitely something that we spend a lot of time on, is looking at how the different jurisdictions are using their codes and whether they're complying with them. So the question of oversight and enforcement should somehow be there. At least that's something I find our CPO involved with it a lot, and we've had some great success. That's why we have the whole enforcement orders, because we've stuck with the fact that the county's been in violation of Goal 5 and their own codes. And so that's something, I guess, that I just didn't see in the survey.
Well, I just added it. Okay. Have you said your piece now?
Yeah, I'm trying to find how I can get my hand down. Oh, there it is.
Okay. Fran?
And I'm gonna one more time disagree a little bit with what you say, Bruce. My big effort in life is to provide timely, accurate information to my neighbors. And if the CPOs provide this timely, accurate information to dispel rumors, we are actually lightening the load for county agencies by informing our neighbors and having that dialogue with them in a positive way. Yes, there are things that the communities are required, are being asked to do to monitor things that are not going right, because the county agencies can't cover every inch of the county. But I think our mission is really about this timely, accurate information. An example was a development application came for an area on CPO 6 that had been, SNR and really nicely grown over the years. And people were really upset that they were going to develop there. Then it turns out, when I dug into the information, that had been zoned R6, 20 years before. And so it was always destined to be this way. And so by letting the people know, you quiet their fears, you do this, and this really contributes to quality of life. So it shouldn't only be raising red flags, it should be communication. And I think that's part of what you're saying, Bruce. But I still believe that there's just so much going on. North Bethany, what did you say, that 40% of the county is still unincorporated Washington County? We have 200,000 people. So the land is going to get used, and we need to help people understand what's coming. And I think that's the education needs to be a key part of it, not just advocacy. So that's my 2 cents worth there. But we haven't had time to do that kind of communication. We're always fighting fires.
Rob.
Do you think it would be in the scope of the CPO to be a resource to provide information to the members that might want to undertake development of their own properties?
Yeah.
Does that happen now that people
Not much.
contact us for information?
Not really. I mean, if somebody wants to develop their property, they have a pre-application meeting with the county.
Mhm.
And, and as studied as some of the senior members of the CCI are in the development process, I would be hard pressed to give a complete recommendation of every part of the development code that a development needed to respond to. So, keeping in mind that this is a volunteer organization, we want to set it up for success. And if we consulted developers, that would be a lot of overhead.
Agreed.
But it's
Forget that. I take that thought back.
well, I mean, it's certainly, if we had well, I'll just forget it. Okay. So
Well, I guess the only utility I'm thinking of is, for instance, I knew very little about development issues, and I knew very little, about the CPO and its operations initially. And I would have been dialed in earlier, that could have been the first person I'd contact would be my CPO chair and send them a note and say, hey, I'm interested in this. Who do I talk to? And then it would have been in the CPO, of course, we've got enough on our plate, like say, as volunteers, that we don't need to be funneling more work than we already are dealing with. But anyway, as an educational resource, again, that would be a good reason to be under the library umbrella, because
that's exactly what I was thinking, that since the library does training already, and they have Donna Cohen's civic instruction courses offered, since what you're saying is we want to educate people on things, the library is certainly more intuitive for that than any other organization that I can think of.
Totally agree with that.
Bruce, I had my hand raised.
Oh, okay. I'm
Um,
going to stop my share here.
okay. One of the comments, this has been a really, really wonderful discussion, but I agree, in theory, the libraries, but I have concerns of logistics. But seems to me one of the big issues that we're all talking about, people not understanding, is, we have a CERT program. Cities do CERT trainings. We have various and sundry, citizen police, citizen fire
Academies, yeah.
whatever. Seems to me one of the things that CPOs, the program, should be doing is maybe facilitating a, land use 101 for citizens, to give them that opportunity to come and have not super intense, but a concentrated ability to get a better grasp. And for example, how to read a zoning map. The question came up that Fran mentioned a development, and it had been zoned C6, for 20 years or whatever, that someone who was concerned could then know what that particular zone was. And anyway, that's my 2 cents worth.
Well, I
I'm
think
always into education.
I mean, that is one of the things that was the focus of the CPO program under the Extension Service, which
Yeah.
is an educational organization. And we moved to CAO, which is a management organization. And and there's been a dearth of general purpose training coming out of OAICE.
So I'm just suggesting that maybe that's something we could facilitate helping getting something of that
Well,
going.
I
here in
mean,
the county.
that's certainly there's certainly work to be done. And we could form a training subcommittee to work on the different course offerings that are needed to cover all the bases.
With the theory that those who get trained then can, move along and spread out the work
Yeah.
down the road. Anyway. Guys, I am very sorry. I warned you I'm in this other meeting. I'm going to have to leave and go to
Okay.
this other meeting.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Fight the good fight.
So Bruce, are you going to send out a draft of your survey before we finalize it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So the things I got were to group the questions by their purpose, which I think will make it feel shorter because you're not just going through one big list of questions. So there we are. I'm kind of running out of steam. Anybody have anything?
Is there going to be a communications report, subcommittee report?
Well, Virginia checked out.
And Ellen's checked out.
Yeah, and Ellen's gone. I mean,
We have
Virginia,
not been meeting. The communication subcommittee meeting has not been happening. And some of that may be because there hasn't been a Zoom link that is readily available. But I think we solved the Zoom problem today. I say I had nothing to do with it. I just saw that it got resolved. So CCI now has a Zoom account, I believe. Bruce, is that what happened today?
that's, I think, what is about to happen. Christina, do you have any update on the CCI Zoom account?
Yeah, we are waiting for Zoom to resolve the ticket request we made. We've been trying to get this resolved since June 6th with Zoom. So not sure really what happened on the other end, but we have paid for the account and we're just waiting for them to resolve the issue. And it's set up with the WA CCI leadership at gmail.com.
Okay.
So it is registered under the correct email. We're just not sure why we can't access the account. So we are patiently waiting for Zoom to get that resolved for us.
Awesome.
So communication
Well, thanks.
subcommittee has not been meeting, and I apologize. I did not send out a notice about the CCI steering committee meeting tomorrow. Bruce, are we doing that tomorrow at 10 a.m.? Or
Yeah.
what did we
Yeah.
move that meeting to a different time and date?
No, that was just that one time
Oh, okay.
to attend. Oh, it was the bystander intervention.
Oh, okay.
But
But I thought there was an issue with you on Wednesdays.
no, I can handle.
Okay, so it would be good if you announced that the CCI steering committee meeting is going to be happening at 10 a.m. tomorrow, and I would guess we're going to finalize the survey at that meeting.
That seems like a good object for
And
the.
So if people have input, or maybe we'll finalize it enough to send a draft out to people. Do
Yeah.
people need a draft before we send the official survey out? Or is that
Yes.
too much
Yeah.
work for
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. We should get it's a little incestuous because the people to review it are the people that are going to be responding to it. But we should make sure that the questions they want to answer are asked.
Randy
I've
has her
got-
hand up.
Can I pose two questions when we get to that point? I have two open questions to ask for the steering committee tomorrow.
Okay,
Is it okay if I keep going?
Sure.
So one is, it's not clear to me about how many people can vote at the CCI. I had thought, and it's in the bylaw somewhere, Mary may know it offhand, that the chair and the vice chair had separate voting, or the chair may not even be a voting member of the CCI panel. Because there was a big issue because we have so many members from CPO 1. So could the steering committee or somebody take a quick look at the bylaws to make sure how many voting members people can vote on the CCI?
well,
It's my understanding that the chair and the vice chair do not have separate voting responsibilities. It's the CCI or the CPO members that have the voting privileges.
Okay,
Well,
so that's what I'm
it's-
saying.
so the chair and vice chair are not automatically the CCI reps, that we typically vote for the CCI reps, and they have the voting privilege, and then there's two alternatives. Or
No, you're talking about subcommittees, aren't you?
no.
Because
Can
No,
you
be
guys resolve it
be-
at that
Okay.
meeting? Because
Okay.
I've had a really long day. And the second one was, I believe that Tree Keepers of Washington County was invited to be a member of CCI
Yeah.
as not as a service provider, but as a party. So we had accepted. So, and then the other question is that invited member a voting member or not? Is it just to attend and provide input? Again, not to answer here, but let's let the steering committee put it in their minutes so that we all know and we're all playing in the same with the same.
But I believe, Bruce, that to make the outside groups member official, we need to vote on that as a CCI membership. I don't believe that's voted on by steering committee. And I think that officially happens beginning July 1.
What begins July 1?
The terms for outside groups begin July 1.
Oh, because
I
they're
believe
one
that's the
year.
way I believe that's the way it's written in the minutes,
They're going to put it on the agenda
the
for next month.
bylaws. That would be a good idea.
It is July 1.
Okay. Okay, and then do they have voting rights? My impression, I mean, yeah, that's why we would have somebody on. Okay, but we will.
Yeah, there's one rep from outside groups, or one rep from each outside group, and they have one vote. So it's different from the CCI or the CPO reps that have two reps with 2 votes. And I don't believe there's a stipulation in the bylaws for alternates for the outside groups.
I can read you the membership on Article 3 of your bylaws. That is, membership of the CCI will consist of the following: 2 representatives and 2 alternatives from each CPO. Selection of the CCI member shall be by any method determined by the provisions of individual CPO bylaws. The term of each representative shall begin on July 1. The length of the term to be determined by the provision of individual CPO bylaws. 2 representatives and 2 alternatives from inactive CPOs. Selection: interested individuals must complete a CCI membership form. Approval by membership is by majority vote and CCI general membership meeting. The term of each representative shall begin on July 1 and shall be for 1 year.
Is there a following line about community organizations that get that have a member?
Not yet.
Like if like the tree keepers were to participate?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
there is a provision, and I don't know where it is, but there is a provision in the bylaws.
I don't see it, but I can put the link up to the bylaws in the chat and I'll add it to the meetings,
Okay.
to the meeting minutes. It just says on voting on Article 4 of your bylaws qualifications, CCI membership is required to vote. So I don't
Oh.
see anything saying that you can't have outside group members be members of the CCI, if that's the question.
There is a provision in the bylaws, and I'm not sure what section it's in, but we can talk about that tomorrow at the steering committee.
Yeah, and I can add again that link to the chat and then also the minutes.
Bruce, Mary Lou has her hand up.
Got it. Mary Lou.
Yeah, I'm thinking since I'm pretty sure I was somehow elected to be Fran's alternate.
No,
right?
no, we have
I
not
what?
had elections.
Or it would be an
No,
alternate.
last year. I don't mean this year. I mean last year.
As tree keepers or
No, from CPO number 1.
Oh, okay.
And so all the time I've been thinking that if she's here voting, I don't vote. If she's not here and I'm here, then I would vote. Is that right?
No, Bruce and Virginia are the CPO1 reps. And if either one of them are missing, Mary Lou and Fran, as I understand it, are the alternates. And so Mary Lou and Fran duke it out if either Bruce or Virginia is there, not there, to determine which one of you votes. Bruce, am I correct there?
That's how I understand it.
Okay, so
the alternates.
we're
pick
both
squads and-
alternates? How did
Yes. Yes,
what?
that's
That's
the way the
bizarre.
bylaws are set up. That's the way the bylaws are set up.
I don't know how we got to be both alternates.
Well, each
Good luck.
CPO has 2 reps and 2 alternates. And that's the way the bylaws are written.
Yeah, Mary Lou and I have a different recollection of what happened when our CPO1 voted for CCI reps.
Okay.
And our recollection was that she and I were the CCI reps, thinking that Bruce and Virginia were already on the CCI
No.
voting
No.
capability.
No.
And no, I understand. That's why I said, let's not trash it out here. Let's figure out. And then what happened was when we had such representation, it was too much. And so we said, okay, only 2 votes from CPO1. And somehow it ended up being Bruce and Virginia and not Mary Lou and I. So that's the history. I don't care how we resolve it. I just want to know what the bylaws say about voting. Are the chair and vice chair exempt voting or not voting? Sometimes they're not even allowed to vote. I don't even remember when we studied those bylaws ages ago. So let's go take a look and not hash it out here.
Okay.
Okay. Rob, what do you got?
I've got the bylaws in front of me. If you're interested, I can read that.
Sure.
Yeah.
These are CPO 3 bylaws.
No, these are CCI.
CCI. Okay.
Yeah, so they define all the members, and certainly when we've got other organizations looking to be a member of our CCI, they could come in as a member at large. And then any member or all members of the CCI have a vote.
Yeah.
So that I would take that to include the chair.
Yeah.
You have to be a CCI member to hold an office in CCI.
Correct.
So you have to have that membership from your CPO to begin with. I suppose you could come in as an alternate
Or a
And
member
hold
at large.
or a member at large, yeah.
Could we just move to adjourn and hash this
No,
out?
I'd like to do the CPO Leaders Roundtable.
Oh, right.
I think Rob has something I'd like to hear from about.
Yes, well, the Portland Golf Club, are you all familiar with the situation there? So they had their application conditionally approved by the county with several provisions that needed to be fulfilled. Our CPO was able to get an appeal filed and accepted just in the nick of time. So we do have a hearing set for August 17th.
Oh.
The Portland Golf Club did not initially get their application to the Army Corps of Engineers completed in time. They were given a month extension. And they were able, as best we can tell, to get some sort of application then at the last day of that month. And the Corps of Engineers will rule on that by July 15th.
And that was the Portland Golf Club or the Tualatin Golf Club?
Portland Golf Club.
The Portland Golf Club.
There's a segment of wetlands that the golf club purchased a few years ago that is immediately adjacent to the Fano Creek Trail. And there is this very large pond in the center of the golf course that they want to dredge to increase the capacity of the pond so they can rely on that for more irrigation. The dredge tailings they would like to put on this wetlands right next to the Fano Creek Trail and very close to Fano Creek itself. And Fano Creek actually passes through the golf course property, is actually tied into the pond. And so this disturbing of the pond will certainly affect Fano Creek directly.
What can we do to help?
Right now, we're in a holding pattern. There isn't an open comment period just yet. There is a nonprofit organization that's been organized within the neighborhood that has retained counsel. So I guess I may be looking to some of you for some advice or help as we get closer to the hearing, because I may be personally on the hot seat for the hearing. It would be interesting. But anyway, we still are very dependent on the Army Corps of Engineers and what they have to say. And if they say, this application is still incomplete, there have been some glaring deficiencies. One of them being the golf course is neglected to put the contents of contaminants in the tailings in any of their applications. And the first application they filed, it was actually blatantly absent. It was referred to in the table, but they did not include that table with the application. And so there are still some things that need to be tied up before we may need to go forward.
Is the Army Corps of Engineers looking at those toxics, or are they looking at other things?
No, they are looking at those. Yeah, they are looking at those. We had Tualatin River Keepers at our meeting Thursday, and they filed a public comment in opposition, and they've got actually an attorney who is really on it, and she listed some specific things that they were concerned about and referred to specific, statutes that they thought, may be violated if that project went ahead. And so I think having them as an advocate has been really helpful.
Good.
That's where we're at right now. And I will be happy to update you as soon as more information comes up.
Fran?
You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, got it. I was going to mention to you a couple of contacts. I'll send them to you. Michael de Blasi is, I've forgotten his official title.
In there. Yeah, in the red plastic
Sorry.
box.
So Michael de Blasi is Fish and Wildlife, I think, wetlands manager for the state, from the state for Washington County. So I'll give you his contact information because he would be very much interested in this. And
Great.
I'll send you some other information shortly for contacts. A botanist who's a PhD in botany, who's probably could help you if you're interested in this testimony information. So, and Tree Keepers has been watching and carefully and coaching Victoria Frankeny from Tree River Keepers. So we're all in this together. This is how we do it.
Thank you very much.
Members at large.
The CPO 4M will be having its annual meeting next week. We'll be re-electing officers and setting out some plans. And we also are having the City of Tigard Chief of Police, Kathy McAlpine, come and talk to us. And she's got some questions to answer.
Could you share the questions that you're going to ask her with the CCI?
Oh, no, well, there's some things. There was an independent review of the police involvement in killing a person down on Bonita and Hall, and the city had done a review, and then an independent study review happened, and the independent study seemed to show that there was some culpability on the part of the city for that. So also I want to talk about photo radar and some of the issues with photo radar. There's some ambiguities in there. So I'm sure there'll be some other questions too, but they aren't coming to mind right now. That's
I'm
it for CPO 4M, unless Jill, you have something to add?
No, I think we're pretty covered for right now.
CPO1 had a really comprehensive overview of the SNR situation. Michelle Miller from the county gave quite a detailed description of the program, and that the link to the YouTube is in the chat. I lost my train of thought here. And just leave it at that. Anybody else have any CPO updates? Well, then I would certainly entertain a motion to.
I would like to make a motion that we say goodnight for the end of spring and move on to summer.
I'll second that.
And off we go.
Good night, everybody.
See you next time.
Jim,
Okay, take care.
Jim,
Yes,
I have a question for you.
I might have an answer.